And we're ready whenever you are.
Presentation, I'm not sure we'll have our layout.
Yeah, just a couple of administrative notes. Good evening, council. Tonight we'll be starting with the police department's presentation and review of their budget. Then we'll move to the fire department if we have time after that. I'd like to cover some of the smaller city budget sections, the mayor, the council, etc. So we'll start off now with Chief Kearns. He's got a presentation that has been placed in front of each one of you. We'll take from there.
Good evening, council, mayor, Mr. Jelly. Good evening. Again, for those of you at home, my name is Mark Kearns. I am a lieutenant with the Ogdensburg Police Department. I'm also currently sitting as our acting chief of police. I'd like to thank my staff, including Lieutenant Maxner and especially Don Mills, our administrative aide. They worked very hard in helping prepare this budget. This is a bare bones budget. I'm not asking for much more than what the city manager has already presented to council in most areas. This is a budget we need just to run our day-to-day functions at the Ogdensburg Police Department. It will start with just a current status of where the police department is at with manpower. We have 18 sworn individuals. That's counting myself, Lieutenant Maxner, 2 detectives, 4 sergeants, and 10 patrolmen. We also have 2 dispatchers as well, and one of our patrolmen is out on a long-term injury, but she is filling in as a dispatcher for our night shift, which is needed because we're still performing our own dispatch duties. We also have 3 other officers who are currently injured. We expect them to be back to work in a matter of weeks, and one will be a matter of months till we get these other 3 officers back to work with us. So with that being said, the budget I'm going to present to you here tonight, the only thing I ask for all of us to keep in mind is when we're talking about working bodies, we understand that even if we hire 21, 24, 25 police officers for the year of 2022, we will be working with just the employees we have right now. That's due to the fact that the academy would start in January, and then there's field training afterwards, and these employees will not count as manpower till October of 2022. So if we were to hire again, we would be working short for all of 2022, and we would feel the impact of tonight's decisions in 2023.
Question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So that would be if we had to send an officer to get trained at the academy. What if we hired officers that were already trained at the academy?
So as long as they're reachable on the civil service list or have been hired off a civil service list, they could transfer to us and work immediately.
Okay.
That is true.
All right. Thank you.
But is there a civil service list?
There is. It just came out. It was just certified the end of October. Okay. I know other agencies in the county are canvassing heavily. There's about 30 people on the list. I do know the sheriff's office is taking about 6, and some other local agencies are also hiring. And as you know, we're all on the same civil service list now, competing for the same individuals.
Okay.
Yeah.
The test results were certified, or the test was certified?
Test results are certified. They've already had the agility test and everything. The list is active. So originally
31, you said? See, how many were on the list?
there's approximately 30 individuals on the list. And I do know that some are not even of the age of 20 yet, because the list, the rules for civil service are 21 at the age of appointment. So there's a handful of 19-year-olds that are on there too that we're not even going to be able to look at for the next
couple of years. You say 6 of those are taken up by the sheriffs?
Yes, at least 6.
Any idea, any other municipalities have any dibs on any of these?
I know that I believe there's still one opening in Canton and also Messina.
Is that a county civil service test or state?
County.
Those people can go anywhere in the state though, or?
So when you take the test, if there's other tests at the same time, you can just pay the fees and take one test. But so yeah, we won't be pulling from out of the area on that list. It would be local individuals within St. Lawrence County.
And then those people, they're not trained or anything? They haven't been to an academy?
No,
So it will take until October.
absolutely.
So if you pick one or two or something like that.
Yeah, they'd have to go to the academy in January. My intentions, if I was to hire though, it would be to get some work out of these individuals. There are some basic things that we are able to, with our own instructors, certify people on. And while they're in the academy, we can use them for certain things. Say we have a prison transport that requires 2 officers, or we could take one of our newly hired cadets, nights, weekends. They can come in and help out and help alleviate some of the workload, directing traffic in a parade, for example. That's another function that they could do. Instead of typically right now, you go to the academy, they work Monday through Friday, academy hours, and they have the weekends off. You want to be a police officer, we work nights and weekends. So as far as I'm concerned, we would use them.
Badge, or they just aren't sworn?
No, they're still sworn police officers. They have full authority of a police officer. They wouldn't ever be on their own board, but with just a detail where you need an extra body, they could perform those functions. You can actually be hired for up to a year as a police officer before you go to the academy. So originally I asked in my budget for 24 officers, and that was to fill our road patrol and to also give 2 lieutenants and another detective, because we're currently working 2 detectives. So I would give me 3 detectives, 2 lieutenants, and what I would consider a full staff of road officers. That salary line item for 24 officers was roughly 1.7 million. And that was on par with where we were at for 23 officers in 2021, which is 1.7 million. I know the city manager and his budget had us at 18 officers. For the rest of this budget, I'm going to be at 21 officers. That is the number I'm requesting out of council as a bare bones, what we need to function as a police department. And if we were to fulfill the SRO duties at the Ogdensburg Central School District, we would need 22 officers. So at 21 officers, that's a salary line item of 1.5 million, which is still, it's 166,000 less than what I originally asked for. So moving through the packet here, overtime, I asked for an increase in that line item for a general fund of 25,000 for just our general overtime. Again, if we reduce officers, the overtime is going to go up on the other end. It's the same amount of work with less bodies to do said work. So that by just simple numbers, that is going to go up. I am estimating we're going to come in the vicinity of 198 to 199 for this year. So we should be right in that area. Airport overtime for the last several years, we've been about $52,000 a year in overtime. That's been fully reimbursed by the airport. And we had a smaller Stone Garden award for fiscal year Stone Garden Award 2021, which we'll be expending in 2022. So that's going to account for that smaller number there. But yes, 68,500 in overtime will be fully reimbursed by the Stone Garden program. And actually, I spoke with Angela Gray about that. That should also be added as a revenue. It wasn't added as a revenue.
That's it shows up in the revenue line.
Question.
It does or it doesn't?
It does. It's always in, it's always showed up as a revenue.
Yeah, it didn't in the budget that was recently put out. It showed our Stone Garden equipment as a revenue, but it didn't show our overtime as a revenue. So if you would add 68.5 to the 411 in our revenue line, that bring us to 479. That's actually the true revenues for the police department. Sick leave incentive, $6,400. There'll be no change in that area. Time and accrual payouts. That is when somebody is going to separate from service. If they're going to retire or they transfer, we owe them the time that they have accrued. That'll be a $10,000 reduction for 2022. I expect one retirement as early as this year, possibly next year. Individual has been out on a long-term injury. He's expected to receive his retirement anytime now.
one at the end of 21 and one in 22?
No, the same individual. I don't have a time frame that's really nailed down. Either does he. It could be the end of this year, at the beginning of 2022. And so that would leave, his payout would be about 40,000. And that leaves me $15,000 for the unfortunate event if we have an officer separate from service, if they choose to transfer somewhere else. The average patrolman would be about a $15,000 payout. Longevity incentive and clothing allowance. That's a number that's contractual. That's based on, they get $1,500 of clothing, and their longevity depends on the years of service. So that's the contractual number of $37,476, which again, with less staff, it's a $7,800 reduction.
So is that with the 2021 or the 18?
That's for 21.
That's for
Yeah,
21.
the rest of this budget, all the numbers I'm going to put forth are for a budget of 21 officers.
Including the overtime.
That is correct.
If we had only the 18 sworn, what do you expect the overtime to be?
Similar to where we're at now, because that's where we worked 18 for this year, and we're going to be roughly at 200,000.
Okay.
I would hope with 21, again, we're not going to see that difference for 2022. So if we do hire 21, it's not going to make a difference because I won't have 21 working bodies.
Right.
Hopefully for 2023, that's a number that could be reduced. Specialized equipment. So this is normally grant funded fully. This year I was able to come up with 75% fully reimbursed through the Stone Garden program for equipment, leaving $13,500 to come from city funds. And those are pieces of equipment, such as we've had the same digital cameras for about 10 years and they're starting to fail, things like that. We need to do our job. We see more and more fentanyl on the street. There's a hood to test fentanyl under, so our officers aren't being exposed while they have to test these drugs. I'm looking to purchase that hood. And also just some trunk organization for our vehicles, a locked secured box. City manager has been very good to us when it comes to making sure we have the proper equipment we need. We just need a place to keep that safe and secure.
And you have body cams?
We do have body cams. Yeah.
But not dash cams?
No dash cams.
Is that in the budget?
It is not. And I can tell you from my perspective, with the body cams, they're always on. They see out the windshield as the officers are driving. I don't think we're missing anything by adding the dash cams, and it adds another layer of discovery. We have 48 hours to get everything to the district attorney's office after an arrest is made. So now if we're adding a day's worth of camera footage from a patrol car on top of the video cams from our body cameras, it's just going to add to the workload throughout the day. Yeah, and it is about triple the cost. We're paying $24,000 a year right now for Axon, which supplies our tasers and our body cams. And so we have to be roughly $75,000 a year to add the car cameras. Equipment. So the only piece of equipment that I am looking to purchase this year out of our capital equipment is to replace our audio visual recording system in our interview room. There's certain classes of crimes that have to be recorded while we're interviewing, and all juveniles that are interviewed have to be recorded. Our recording system is starting to fail. We're not getting quality recordings, and we're having issues with the audio. I have sought local vendors to replace that, and $5,000 would be sufficient to cover the replacement of this recording system. Capital leases. We own one remaining patrol car. I'm looking to take that last patrol car, make it a leased vehicle. So our entire marked patrol unit would be leased vehicles. And that vehicle that we do own would replace a 2011 Chevrolet Tahoe, which has been costly with repair bills that we can remove from our fleet. The car I'd be taking out of the fleet would be a 2020, so it'd be a fairly new car. We own it outright, so it will last us years. Its position would basically be a spare car for people to take to court, school, trainings, and when our cars are in the garage for their routine maintenance, we still have a car.
What do you have for fleet right now when you say fleet?
What's that?
What do you have for all your?
So we have 4 Well, we have four 2021s. Yes, four 2021. Yep. And then our oldest one's a 2020, so our fleet's in pretty good shape. They're all leases, except for the 2020. And then we also have I want to say it's a 2016 Ford Expedition that was purchased by the government, the federal government, through the Stone Garden grant. That vehicle is generally used for our Stone Garden patrols. They pay for the vehicle. It's technically theirs. They can ask for that, send it down to the southern border, and we have to say, yep, it's yours, go ahead and take it. But it's there for Stone Garden patrols, and it is a good backup vehicle for us as well. That's what our 2011 Chevy Tahoe is. They bought it. They never came and asked for it, so it still sits in our back lot. We don't use it often, but it's there.
So you have about 6 or 7 vehicles
Total. So I have, counting the Stone Garden vehicle and our Canine vehicle, that's 6 marked units. And I have 4 unmarked units, and I have 2 undercover units that are, we try to keep hidden the best we can. I am able to get rid of an unmarked vehicle. I have 3 Chevrolet Impalas. They're all in very good shape. They all have about 30,000 miles on them. They're 2011s. They're older vehicles, but they have very little wear and tear. I think one would be a good fit for somewhere else within the city for sure. Any questions on our vehicles?
Well, the lease expense in the budget's 74,000. You've got 62 here.
So originally I asked for 2 lease vehicles. I was asking when I put my preliminary budget in, I was also asking for a pickup truck that would serve multiple purposes. Could tow our boat, could pick up our own bicycles and not rely on the DPW to do those things. The times we do have to deal with dead animals. And let's face it, a pickup truck blends in very well with the general public if it had to be used for other purposes as well. Originally I was looking at leasing it, and then discussed with the city manager in regards to just buying the pickup truck outright, because we would have it for a long period of time. The truck should last us. And ultimately it didn't make the overall budget. We may receive something from another city entity instead to have a pickup truck. So that's where that $74,000 number would have came from. That was leasing 2 vehicles. We currently are at $45,000 for our leases. It's roughly $1,000 a month per vehicle. So that's where the extra $12,000 would come to $57,000, and then $5,000 in contingency funds to change the lights over from one vehicle to the other to pay the outfitter for that. So that's where the total for capital leases would be $62,084.
Council, the money for the lease vehicles is all paid for this year by the state grant, still from the FRB money. So all this money he's talking about here is fully reimbursed money.
Travel, that's no change there. $1,000. That's we have in the middle of the night go pick up a prisoner somewhere, and we got to reimburse our guys because they left in the middle of the night, had to use their own funds to take care of whatever they needed. $1,000 is sufficient for that. Office expenses, $1,000 reduction there, moving to $6,500. Medical expenses. So from 2021 to 2022, I'm asking for an increase of $4,000 to bring it to $8,000. Medical expenses are for our new hires. We have to have physicals done, eyes, ears, visual, and we also now have to do a psychiatric evaluation, part of the new police reform laws. So that's roughly $2,000 per hire. And I also have to do yearly medical tests on all my employees that wear gas masks. So that's would also come out of the same line item. So I would need $2,000 minimum just to cover my current employees out of this line item, and then another $2,000 for each new hire if we were to hire. Next line items, telephone, $700 reduction in that area. We'll move that down to $6,500. Equipment maintenance, that's one of our biggest line items in our budget. I was actually going to take $10,000 out of this line item because we're doing well. We got newer equipment, things aren't breaking down as much as they were in the past. The lease programs definitely helped with that. However, since we went to body cams, we now have a $24,000 a year bill, and that's where this has to come out of. So that's why the increase is showing there to 85.5. Building maintenance, reducing that by $800 to an even 5,000.
What's that for?
Anything that breaks in the building, just general maintenance, plumbing, just like
Did
any
we ever
building.
replace the furnace, the heating system?
Yes, we got a brand new boiler system.
Yep.
That's up and functioning this year. Got finished. They just finished the tweaks at the end of last winter, so we kind of struggled with it working right last year, but so far so good this year.
There's not central air.
We do not have central air, and that's, I would love to look into a grant for that because I think it would be overall a cost savings down the road where it's an old, the building, the old Army Reserve building. It gets very hot in the summertime and we're running an air conditioner in every window. So our heats, lights, rentals, gasoline, materials and supplies, I'm not asking for a change anywhere in there. Those numbers seem to be almost right on, not going over, and just enough in our 2021 budget, so there'll be no changes for 2022.
You think with the price of gas increasing, we don't need to tack another 20% on the gas price?
Well, I'll be honest with you, we're putting less miles on our vehicles. And that's, again, we have less bodies. I don't have officers out there being proactive looking for things, so they're not putting the miles on the cars that they used to.
Okay.
But with that being said, our social council is also aware because we've had these complaints in the past that our cars are always running, and more so now than ever, our cars are running 24 hours a day. They have all sorts of new computer equipment in there so we can communicate with the county. The computers are always running, and as soon as you turn the car off, everything gets logged out. And so if you leave the station to get back in that car, you're logged out of the system. And now more than ever, key communications are sent over that computer system, less and less over the radio. And it's an instant message system essentially. So you're getting your updates as you're driving to the call by your dispatcher, pertinent updates or things that are tactful that shouldn't be going over the air. Officers can message each other. And we can monitor what they're being messaged. So again, so they'll be running to keep that equipment up and running and charged and turned on. Moving on to our Canine Unit and investigations. Our Canine Unit, we come in under our $3,000 bill every year. We usually spend about $2,000. But again, it's an animal, and that's where our vet bills come out of. So God forbid anything happens to Canine Shyler. She did have a broken tooth a year or two ago, and we had to find the money for that. So even though we come in around the $2,000 mark, I believe $3,000 is a safe line item for canine. Investigations, this is $6,000. This is what we use for our buy money. I'm asking for no changes in that this year. Even though, as with everything, the price of drugs on the street are going up, and we're buying more drugs than we have in many years, but we can do it within the $6,000 mark. And if we need large sums of money, we have our federal counterparts that we can ask for to take care of that. Records management, no changes there, $1,000. That's basically the shred truck that comes in and takes care of old records. Professional training, I'm asking for a $1,500 increase. I'd have to agree 100% with Mr. Jelly when it comes to training. He told me to put together a training plan and your budget better match your training plan. And Lieutenant Maxer and I sat down. We thought about all the training we need, where our agency is lacking, the training we've lost. We've lost a lot of individuals that had a lot of training in our department, and we need to replace that training. So I'm looking for a $1,500 increase there to satisfy our training needs for 2022. Uniforms and clothing. I'm looking for a $600 decrease here. The city manager reduced this to $5,000, but I'm requesting $10,000. Again, this is for a budget of 21 officers. Each hire costs about $2,500 to outfit with new equipment and to send them to the academy. So 3 hires would be $7,500. that remaining 2,500 in that budget is to replace department issued clothing. We fund all the jackets, all the duty belts, that comes out of our budget. So as those things break and wear out, we still have to have a budget to replace those items. I had no need for consultants in 2022. Last year, it was a Lexipol system. We still pay a yearly user fee, but we do not have a consulting fee to use Lexipol. That was the policy, the rules and regs updates that we did last year. We're still in the middle of that, and that program was worth every penny. So this brings us to a cost of a new officer. $120,000 has been said time and time again as the average cost of a police officer. That is true. 120 definitely is the average cost, but a new hire is going to be $90,050. That includes their salary, and their salary is 6 months. They have a reduced salary while they're in training, and then they get their full salary for the remaining 6 months of the year. So that's where that $46,877 comes from for their salary.
Is that the average between the 2 6 months?
Yeah, it's taking 1,040 hours at each pay rate to come up with that. Their health insurance, again, we know who is on this list. They are young individuals without families, so I would not have to budget for a family plan. It's a single person plan, and the city's responsibility of that single person plan would be the 8192. And what the past experience has told us, that could even be less, because a lot of these individuals are under the age of 26. They're still on their parents' insurance, and therefore we don't have to cover them. A retirement, $28,440. Social Security costs of $65.41, giving you a total cost for $90,050. So again, that's your salary. That's what costs for that new officer. But again, it's $2,000 for for medical and $2,500 for their equipment. So about $95,000 what it will cost for a new hire. So it brings us to our total budgets. In 2021, our total budget was approximately $3.9 million. I initially asked for a budget of 24 officers at $4.1 million. The city manager's asking for a budget of 18 officers at roughly $3.5 million. And I'm telling you, I need 21 officers to function. And that's a $3.79 million budget. And I say by 21 to function, I'll give you a brief rundown on how I would see these 21 officers ultimately fit within our department. Whether we're on 8 hours or 12 hours, I'll give you an 8-hour schedule. That would give us 5 officers on each shift, A, B, and C shift as we call it. But that is not 5 working officers. We got to keep in mind they all can't have the same days off or nobody's working. So their days off have to be staggered. So this really gives you 3 officers, a sergeant, and 2 patrolmen that show up at the Ogdensburg Police Department to work their shift. By having 5 on each shift, you get 3. And it gives a person as a desk personnel for the day shift, night shift, and the afternoon shift.
How do you get 3? Is there that much vacation during the course of a year and
well, if you have 5 people that all have to work day shift, you have to stagger their days off. You can't give more than 2 people the same scheduled days off, or we're automatically creating overtime in our budget. So that's what you're going to get. 5 people gives you 3 people on a shift. Once a rotation, you get 4. You get 4 guys working together once a rotation. So that's about it's once every 3 weeks. That's what a rotation is. So once every 3 weeks, you'll have 4 guys scheduled to work. That's on an 8-hour shift. The numbers aren't much different looking at a 12-hour shift, but it gives you a sergeant and 2 patrolmen on each shift. But 12s would allow us to also have a swing shift from 3 p.m. to 3 a.m. So you're going to have 3.5 officers working every day, opposed to 3 on your 8 hours.
And that doesn't count people in administration.
It does not. So at 21, that would give me 5 on each shift. It gives me a desk personnel, and you have a swing shift sergeant. So that way, it doesn't matter if we have 4 sergeants or 3 sergeants. We have 4 currently. The sergeants have days off. There's 3 sergeants. We have a swing shift sergeant. They basically work the days off with the other sergeants. If we don't have a sergeant in there, we pay a patrolman the price of a sergeant to be a sergeant. So there's not a cost savings there. And ultimately, I'd rather have a sergeant in that position, a trained supervisor that has to go to a supervisor school, and it gives us a supervisor at the department 24 hours a day. So that covers the road end, and that still keeps us at myself, Lieutenant Maxner, and 2 detectives at 21 on an 8-hour schedule. On a 12-hour schedule, again, it gives us 3.5 officers a shift, 2 administrative positions, myself, Lieutenant Maxner, and I could add a 3rd detective on a 12-hour shift schedule. That's for 21 personnel. Again, if we needed that extra body for the school to make even numbers, it would be 22.
Why doesn't the school district go the other route of hiring an SR, a retired officer, or the rest, like other schools do? Seems to put a.
They certainly could, and that's within their rights to do. But from a law enforcement standpoint, the number of issues, crimes that do occur within the school district, these other school districts that have an SRO per se, that are not sworn law enforcement, they still have to call the police to handle said matters. I would much rather prefer it be a law enforcement officer, not necessarily from our agency. I'm fine if it's from another agency. I prefer ours because it makes the continuity of everything much easier. But yeah, if it's not a sworn law enforcement officer, it's basically a security guard out there. And from my take with the Ogdensburg School District, they're not looking for a guy with a gun out there. They're looking for someone that's interacted with the students, someone who can investigate the crimes that do occur out the school district. But ultimately, that's their decision. I'd love for it to be one of our personnel. But even if we support that moving forward, again, for 2022, the working bodies are the same number. That's not changing. Even if we hired a 21, our working bodies are 18, unless we get a transfer.
And the school pays for 75% according to the contract that we've had, correct?
I believe so.
Yeah.
$85,000 flat.
And we would use them in the summertime.
Yes.
You mentioned the sheriff's department taking 6 more officers in, deputies. Are they expanding their force?
So they're extremely short as well. I can tell you on a lot of nights, they're patrolling the entire city with 2 or 3 deputies.
County?
The entire county.
They don't come into the city.
No. So there may be a deputy assigned to this zone, but this, by talking zones, same for the county and the state. Your zone is from Waddington to the county line, Jefferson County line. It's a very large area. A night shift, that's you 1 deputy, one troop car. After midnight, they're doubled up, so it's 2 troopers in 1 car. So you got 2 cars covering that entire area.
But so with hiring 6, are they adding to the force a little bit?
I believe it's bringing them up to their allotted staffing.
What is that? Do you know how many sworn officers?
It's in the area of 30. I do know that. I couldn't tell you their exact number without looking it up, but it's around 30.
30 for the entire county. What are other municipalities at for sworn officers in St.
Messina's at 20. They're looking to go to 21, similar to where we're at. And the thing you say, the entire county, they're handling transports. Like they had 8 deputies on today, day shift. They're doing transports all day long, 8 deputies to and from court. That's what they're doing. Their call volume is similar to our call volume, but you can put several thousand of their calls as prisoner transports to and from court. That's not what we're doing. Just the reality. When we talk stats, you can look up stats. Yep, we both handle between 10 and 11,000 calls a year. But our calls of service are calls of service to the citizens of Ogdensburg. It's not transporting people around the county.
What can't Potsdam down there?
I believe Potsdam's the biggest of the 3. I think they're around 10. Do you know their stats? Governor is much smaller, 5 or 6.
I do know people get calls per officer. We're almost 150 above the next closest. We can only one call per officer.
Yeah, we're above 600 officers or 600 calls per officer a year. Well, actually, it's about 650 calls per year per officer. Messina is the next closest, and they were in the 400 range of calls per year per officer.
Yeah, you guys are running about 30-35% more than the next lowest.
How many did you say were at Governor?
5 or 6.
5 or 6 officers patrols?
They're a part-time agency.
Right, right. And they close from like 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. every day?
Yeah, yeah. Ultimately, if
2 or 1?
I don't want to misspeak because I don't work there, but I'm pretty certain if they can't fill their schedule, they shut the doors.
Yeah.
So on the last couple slides of the PowerPoint, to me, it's, as the current leader of this department, it's something I'm actually proud of, and I wanted to share with council. Yes, the numbers are the numbers. 10,328 calls of service from August of 20 to August of 21. Breaks it down on these are just the highlights of things that are taking up a lot of our time. These are by no means do these calls add up to the 10,000 calls. 337 domestics, 2 shootings. We can actually add 4 shootings year to date. There's 2 from August to August. 2 homicides. You can change that to 3 homicides. 2 robberies, a kidnapping, 330 fights, 19 rapes, 40 meth cases, 376 larcenies, 89 burglaries. The list just goes on and on. 516 mental health complaints, 25 missing persons. I mean, this is all time. This is what our patrol officers are handling day in and day out. And even in my career, just the length of time it takes to do a simple investigation. Like I use Walmart for an example. You commit a larceny at Walmart, you steal some store merchandise, you make your arrest, you process the person, there's an hour. You have an hour doing paperwork, an hour downloading your body cam footage. So a simple complaint at Walmart just costs this officer 3 hours out of his day. And in that meantime, calls are building up and he has to go answer those. And it just keeps adding and adding. As far as our investigations unit, you gotta remember this is 2 guys working and they're putting up the more numbers than what the unit of 4 or 5 guys did back in the early 2000s. So very proud of my 2 detectives, without a doubt. On the narco end for 2021, they seized over $671,000 of drugs off the streets. We seized over $200,000 in cash from local drug dealers. So that's $880,000 worth of drugs and drug money off the streets of the city of Ogdensburg. That's a huge number. I'm very proud of these guys. Again, I would expect to see with our current, we call it a DAG, it's our federal asset seizure sharing fund. We would see approximately 50 to 60% of that $209,000 ultimately. Whenever
What was that again? I'm sorry.
50 to 60% of that $209,000 that we see. So, fair to say 100,000 of it will come back ultimately. They executed 22 search warrants. A search warrant is a very, very time consuming item. A lot of work goes into it, a lot of investigation. 22 for 2 guys to handle is quite a bit. Again, that number is kind of on par for what the unit that used to formerly be 5 guys would do. 14 sex abuse cases, and there's an asterisk there, and that asterisk is because all those 14 sex abuse cases led to an arrest or a grand jury indictment. So we're definitely taking care of our victims in the sex crime area, getting to the bottom of things and finding justice for the victims. We've had 3 homicides in 2021, 3 missing persons that were more time consuming than the general patrol unit would handle. Major identity thefts, computer crimes, grand larcenies, 6 cases involving the use of a weapon or a gun. And I can tell you 4 of those shots were actually fired. 3 major assaults, 6 fire investigations, 9 major burglaries to local residents and several businesses, 3 armed robberies, and a recent criminal mischief.
3 armed robbers.
3 armed robberies, yes. So that's year to date. We divide our, I called narcotics unit and the criminal investigations unit. It's really 2 guys now. 76 narcotics cases, 87 criminal cases that 2 guys are handling. They're doing a phenomenal job. I'd love to put a 3rd detective back there and hope these seizures would only increase and more crimes are being solved. Their numbers would be higher, but ultimately we're asking our patrols to handle more than they ever have because they just don't have the staffing and investigations to handle the crimes that they used to handle. And that's actually, it's reflected on the quality of work as well. But we're doing what we do. We triage cases as they come in. Overall, our department did a great year, but they are worn out. I can say that wholeheartedly. We can keep asking them to do more with less, but there's no less anymore. The more continues from within our own department. Again, our administrative staff is down to 2 of us instead of 3. We've had to push our duties down to other officers, adding to their day-to-day. The laws that keep changing, the discovery obligations, the bail reform, it all adds to the time for these officers day in and day out. And with the current staffing, they don't get a day off. They're working their regular days off. We're denying their time off requests quite often. And ultimately, we're forcing people into work several days a week just to cover the shifts, to cover the airport.
Mental health outlook?
What's that?
How's the mental health?
That's a true concern of mine. Something I've tried to do since I've been acting is I have a supervisors meeting about twice a month, and about every month I've had a departmental meeting, and that's something I preach at all these meetings is to look out for each other, because you can tell the mental health is declining. No one wants to be at work when you're miserable at work, and that can spread like a cancer. And if you got one employee on your shift that's upset and mad at the day, that just spreads. And when your shift is 2 people, it doesn't take long for it to spread.
Well, to compound it with the additional stress that comes with it.
Yeah.
You know, as far as the mental health aspect, not only, you know, am I concerned about the mental health of your staff, more, you know, and I've spoke with many of your patrol and some of your supervisors, your sergeants, and briefly with Corey months ago. But all that aside, I'm genuinely concerned about the overall morale of your agency as well. And that's a genuine concern, not only the mental health of the officers, but the additional mental health components that are going to be coming down the line as far as you being able to do your job. You mentioned, you know, the parole reforms and the level 4 and many of the things that are coming down the pike are going to add additional responsibilities to your job, and it's going to require additional training down the road.
No, absolutely. And
you're not. I appreciate your conservative budget here. I do, you know, but ultimately that's not coupled here, and that's a concern of mine. And you know, going forward, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, from my staffing experience with 18 officers, you'd be pretty much hiring overtime almost every day. You're looking at
we are.
Right.
We're just overtime every day.
And 21 in a perfect world. No injuries, no additional investigations.
That's a perfect world there. That's no injuries. That's no one out on COVID, no one being quarantined.
Nobody having the flu.
Right. That's 21 working bodies is that's no buffer. We need 21 to function. Again, that's, you know, I asked for 24 originally. 21 working bodies is what it's going to take to survive. It's a survival number. And I'm afraid our numbers will dwindle without some hires. I'll be honest with you. Some hires would be, for lack of better terms, a light at the end of the tunnel, right? To give these guys some hope that there's some relief coming. There's, you know, it's another year of hard work, grunting through and getting through it. But to know that, hey, in 2023, we got some relief coming. And, you know, things should be better then. Maybe we can hire a couple more the following year. That would be wonderful.
To follow up, it's pretty impressive with a lot of the information that you've shared with us with the limited resources that you have, in my opinion. One of the things that troubled me when I overheard earlier is the inability to be proactive.
Yes, and that's a true statement.
That's a genuine concern in today's society, in my opinion, moving forward, and without the proper resources, training, and quite frankly, the staff.
We're a reactive department right now. We're waiting for the next call to come in, and not to compare us to other entities, but we are not the fire department. We're not waiting for a fire. Our job is to go out there to prevent crime and to stop it in its tracks. That's what I made my career on. I did drug interdiction work with the canine officer. That's what I love. That's what I'd like to push to my guys. That's where a lot of these stats came from, is we had the overtime through the Stone Garden grant to put 4 or 5 officers in flux an area, and we would be making these seizures. I don't have the staff to put 4 or 5 guys out to work a Stone Garden grant when I can't fill my regular shifts.
As far as the school, am I correct to assume that the school resource officer is included in the budget?
Yes,
Well, that was a genuine concern as well as some kids that I spoke with. I believe on October 14th, there were actually 3 fights in one day out there, and they had nowhere to really kind of turn. They wanted to go to the school administrators, but they didn't want to be turned in as being a witness to something, or it could be a potential crime, and they were concerned. And that's a genuine concern, and I agree with you that we have a DARE program here. It's successful, and it's through this agency, and I think that the school resource officer should be rated out of your agency.
and I don't have a DARE officer this year. You'll see in the DARE line item, asking, it's there as a placeholder, but I'm asking for $0 for DARE. I don't have an officer trained in it. I don't have an officer I can send out to the school district. We used to have our SRO, and we had a juvenile aid detective, and that detective would be our DARE officer, just so, especially these younger kids, they would know who this detective was, and it wasn't a stranger that had a major crime occur to them. Ultimately, when we originally downsized, we were going to have our SRO also become our DARE officer. He's already in the school. And of course, our SRO transferred to the Canton Police Department. So he was actually slated to go to Ohio for DARE school in October. But we lost him for that.
Some of the seized contraband here that I recognize out of 209,000, we're looking at 104.5 coming back to us.
Yeah.
With additional resources and more investigative units, let's face it, Ogdensburg's no different than anywhere else at the moment. There's a high amount of drug activity in this city. There's no question about it. And with that, with the higher resources and additional support in getting that, you might even be able to offset some of the costs by putting some more money back into our coffers.
Ultimately, that's always the hope. And I know Ogdensburg has a reputation of methamphetamine use, but honestly, our meth labs have dramatically decreased in the last 18 months, and we're seeing more crystal methamphetamine on the streets. The difference with that is it just comes up here the same way as crack cocaine or heroin or fentanyl does. It's transported from a major metropolitan area and distributed on our streets. So in a way, it's good and bad. Meth labs are obviously dangerous. There's still some out there, but not the near amounts that we used to have. But the one seizure on here, total seizure, 1,005 grams of fentanyl and only 2 grams of heroin. What that's telling us is there's very little heroin on the street anymore. There is fentanyl, which is also, it's a man-made opiate, and that's what causes overdoses. There's an overdose every day in the city of Ogdensburg. They're not always reported, but from the sources we have on the street, we know there's overdoses every day, and it's largely due to fentanyl.
The mental health complaints, they 516, that's quite a burden. I think we're going to work on trying to lessen that.
Yes, we are in talks with several of our mental health agencies around here to try to dwindle that number. Again, even if we got rid of all 500, there's still 9,800 calls of service for us to take care of. But yeah, any little bit will help. I truly believe that our police department is taking advantage in that area. the police department's often used as a catch-all. You know, the police department will take care of it.
And it did.
We can't do that anymore.
There's definitely taking someone into custody
Yeah.
that, you know, mental health issues, doesn't want to be taken into custody and. feels
I can tell you
threatened.
the 3 officers who are currently hurt, they're all out from physical encounters with mental health patients. It's not the criminals on the street that fight us more often than not. It's a mental health patient.
I mean, it definitely needs to be shared with other agencies. I mean, this burden on you guys is ridiculous.
How much manpower is with the St. Lawrence County Drug Task Force? I don't understand.
So the drug task force, the sheriff's office themselves have one detective who was assigned just to drug crimes. And what the task force is made of is the local, state, and federal counterparts all have members assigned. We technically have 4 members who are sworn deputies, myself included, who are members of the drug task force, but we're not all active. We have 1 drug investigator as well. Most local agencies have 1 person assigned. Villager Possum has 2. Again, we have 4. Messina PD has 3, excuse me. And then we also have our federal counterparts who are on the task force as well.
Why the drop in the Stone Garden
Uh,
operation?
So again, that's a Department of Homeland Security grant with the new federal administration that came in.
Oh, okay,
They're
fair enough.
not so much money
Fair
funded.
enough.
I mean, Mark, I personally wholeheartedly accept your recommendation. I mean, you guys are the ones out there on the streets. You guys are beating feet every day. You guys are seeing what we're not. And thankfully, I'm not exposed to nearly what you guys have to and gals have to be exposed to every day. I wholeheartedly support your 21. I don't know where anybody else sits on that, but looking at what our officers face, the mental health crises that are going on in general, let alone what our officers are dealing with on a daily basis. The last thing we need to worry about is losing an officer due to a mental health crisis or, God forbid, something worse happening. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night myself personally. I do, as a parent of 2, some couple more years, 3 kids in the Ogdensburg School District, the SRO position is invaluable. Like you can't put a price on what that does. I know my daughter went through the DARE program. It was a fantastic program. I went through it as a kid. I don't know. I'm a lot younger than some of these people up here, so I don't know if they had the DARE program back then, but
You're the youngin'.
I enjoyed it then, and I know my daughter really enjoyed it, and I hope that my 2 sons both have that opportunity to do so. I mean, the interactions in a positive light with officers. Some of these kids in the district, they don't have that. They don't have positive role models at home. They don't have positive interactions with the police. They've seen things that probably kids shouldn't see from a very early age. And I'm blessed that, we haven't been exposed to that, but there's a lot of kids who aren't. So I think that filling that position is vital, at least moving forward and having training and having somebody ready to go in that position. And it just shows the ability to work well with the school district, in my opinion.
Thank you
The
for that.
SRO as a teacher working in district, the SRO is
I know,
so much valuable intel and information to
Yeah.
what's going on. And not only that, but the things that you mentioned with the kids.
yeah, and I mean, my son's at Medill, and the surroundings aren't always ideal. And they've had, I know, individuals cutting through the school during school hours, and the things these individuals are pretty sketchy. And you have children on the playgrounds, and I know the SRO was successful in being able to be a presence when that was an issue. And sometimes just being able to be the deterrent before there's the problem. like you said, proactive policing, that little bit can really, really be impactful when minutes and seconds count.
Absolutely.
The SRO is in here.
The SRO is in there, but we're not paying for that. So
Right.
But Mark, could you please tell the council, do you currently have anybody ready to step up?
No, he said he didn't already, but I'm just saying.
So we have an issue to address. It's not about money and it's not about making a plea to do it. It's in the budget. We're planning to do it. The issue is, are we going to get somebody to do it?
Right, that's why I just
gonna be our issue.
stated that, I would like to see the training for somebody who's selected and at least move forward, because if we're looking at any type of impact on the actual force, we're looking at 2023, then we need to start being proactive and looking at the training programs for an officer to be able to supply that. And maybe
No, it's not a question of the training. It's a question we don't have anybody who wants to
I
take
was
the training.
talking, I need to be interrupted. Thank you.
I just want to make sure you're
So,
staying factual.
going back to what I was saying, so I think that looking at an officer that would fit the criteria, because not just any officer fits that criteria. It takes a kind of a special type of individual to be able to work in that. And you don't want to put a brand new officer in that position either. So I know that looking forward, if you could possibly get us some names of who you might think would be a good fit for that going forward, and maybe we could look at.
I think a lot of my officers would be a great fit for that. But honestly, I don't have we've canvassed our department. I don't have a single officer who has asked to,
Who is interested in.
who is interested at this point. So there's ideas out there to, split it, train a couple of different individuals. That might entice some people. And I truly think too, like we're saying, light at the end of the tunnel, if they see more manpowers coming, they might be more apt to go out to the school district for a year or two, and then come back up to the road patrol. We're a very young department. And the concern of a lot of our officers are, they go out to the school, they're going to be lost and forgotten on how things are actually functioning on the road,
Right.
and lose contact of the other aspect of the job where they started. So I think it's more of a cultural thing. We don't have a lot of those seasoned officers who are looking at, in 4 or 5 years and,
Right.
have their own kids and understand that and are looking, hey, the school might be a good place for me right now. So there's some options, and I don't think it's that we're not going to get somebody interested in it, but we just did not have a positive response when we canvassed our own department.
No, I appreciate your input.
When we're canvassing is when us.
Right.
So there's a camaraderie amongst them saying, if one of us goes to the school, we're even shorter now.
Oh, absolutely.
So, no one's jumping in, going, yeah, well, they're going to
Leave everybody else to deal with the rest of everything else.
That's a piece of it too. I don't know that it's everything, but I think that coupled with other things. And like you said, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and some of those things might change as we start getting somebody out there.
What's the training consist of? What are you looking at as far as man hours?
Also, there's 2 schools we would send an SRO to. Originally, just the SRO school. It's a 40-hour school. And then ultimately the juvenile school, which is another 40-hour school.
That's 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Yeah, and they're not back to back. They'd be separate times of the year. Yeah, no, yeah, ultimately DARE, and I believe that's
40.
That's more than
Probably
40.
longer.
DARE is a tough school. They'll tell you it's a 40-hour course, but it's 12, 14, 16 hours a day. They don't tell you that when you get there. DARE is very strict. They don't like your performance. They kick you out. You smoke a cigarette while you're there for DARE. You go home. It's a very strict program, but it produces well.
So you could train, if you had 2 officers interested in an SRO, you could, it wouldn't cost much, wouldn't be much of a burden to train them.
Not at all.
And they could rotate out of there and still do patrols and stuff.
Right. Ultimately, if I had 2 officers, I would, choose I think the best fit. So there's some continuity to everything. I split the school year in half, not doing a week here or a week there. It's, you get the first 2 semesters and you get the second 2 semesters. And
Who does the training? State education?
so there's training through DCGS and also the New York State Juvenile Officers Association.
No, it's an interesting concept. I like that. Appreciate your hard work.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. And all I can ask is, again, we're looking for $250,980 difference here. So I hope you can find $250,000 somewhere in our budget to make this happen. But thank you for your time.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
Chief.
much.
Lori, thank you. Lieutenant.
Take 5 or 10 before we start the next one.
Yeah.
Have a good night, gentlemen.
Quick question. How many you got out there right now?
Are we working right now?
Yeah.
Honestly, those no guard details. I have 7 out there right now.
Thank you.
2 on the road.
Yeah.
Right.
On the road and
Best
hopefully guys get some big seizures done.
stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
What's that? Yeah. It's good.
Yeah.
I think I cut $100,000 off. Cut sheet. That expense.
Oh, hell yeah. Sure, yeah.
She's got it. Okay, you're the, okay. You good? So recapping on the police department budget, I think probably the most loud and clear message is we're asking a lot of a small organization. So last year we staffed them at 23 officers. They operated most of the time with 19 or 20. We have to consider what the Ogdensburg Police Department is no longer going to do. We have to look at that. We can't keep shoving 10 pounds of responsibility into a 2-pound sack, which is what we're doing. So we have less money to put into resources for it. It's got to mean less services somewhere. We can't keep driving and driving and driving. It's fine to talk about. We want the school program is nice, but it does take one more officer. Going over to OBPA, we get paid for it, but it takes away officers. You heard them say tonight, 7 officers on duty tonight. 2 of them working for us. 5 of them working for the federal government. So I understand the string with the overtime, but that's not mandatory overtime for the federal government. So these are all the things we got to look at. It's all one big pie, and every little slice goes into making the one big pie. It's not just one program here, SRO, one program here, OBPA, Stone Garden, investigations, task force, et cetera, et cetera. We just keep taking all these programs and trying to do business. I mean, even at 23 officers we staffed them with last year, it's not enough to do all those programs. And the very minute we get somebody hurt, or I mean, as you heard tonight, it wouldn't matter if we authorize the positions. We won't get use of them until this time next fall.
Right, but those of us raising our families here in Ogdensburg care about police protection.
You can grandstand all you want to, but let me
I'm
just
not
finish my
grandstanding.
facts.
I'm
You're just
already been
grandstanding.
reelected.
Once again, you don't have any facts. You're just sitting
We
here
got
talking.
7 officers on duty
Just
today.
sitting
2 of
here
them are ours and the other ones are federal agents, you're saying.
They're not federally, they're working for the Stone Garden program.
And probably on selective cases, not doing patrols. They're not patrolling our streets. They're not working.
They're not, that's right, but they're working, Counselor. That's my point, they're working. So they're doing something else, something it's not mandatory for the city of Ogdensburg, something that's adding more stress and more hours to their program.
I get that.
And then I could force them to work overtime on our streets tomorrow again. So my point is, it's the number of functions too. We have to look at functions. We get focused on the budget, we get focused on the personnel, but what I'm saying is there is a functional operation that goes on here, and we just have to say, do we have enough people? If you line up, listen, I gave you the chart during the presentation. You see the numbers it takes. 26 is about where we ought to be. I mean, I know where the numbers are. I'm not disputing the numbers we ought to have to do the functions we're doing. I'm saying to you, we can't do all the functions we want to do with the number of officers. So at some point, no matter what we agree on, 18 that I proposed, 21 that he asked for, 23 we had last year, we can't keep doing all this functionality because we never have all those numbers. Even if you have all those numbers, you have people that are injured, that they can't work. There's 3 right now that aren't working. One has not worked in almost 2 years. I hope it'll be off the roll soon. And we pay the full salary. I can't recruit behind that. So everything they said tonight is absolutely true. There's all these factors that make up the larger piece of the pie. But part of it is the expectation of what we want them to do on a daily basis. Do we have the resources to adequately have patrol operations being done properly, investigative operations being done properly, administrative operations being done properly? We're working our way out of dispatch operations, but once I get the dispatch piece off them, there'll still be another component that this council will have to look at and deal with, which is, do we close the door on the police department? Because those dispatchers also provide that function in which you can walk in the door and talk to somebody. When those positions are gone, that's another service that wouldn't be there. That my assumption is that will be a pretty heavy expectation that the city residents won't like, that they don't have. So
We can't do that.
no, Dan, I hear you saying I know. Honestly, there's no function they talked about tonight that I think any of you would agree that you'd want to cut. I don't think anybody want to cut AM. We want to do all of them. I'm just saying to you, the numbers we're talking about tonight are almost semantics between 18, 21, and 23. It's almost semantics. We're still asking. We've got too many things going on for the number of officers that we have. And you heard me say tonight what's working here. 2 officers, what we have on our street. It doesn't take anything. I mean, probably one of the most telling things that you see when you listen to the calls going on is, like he said, any kind of a case, they make the arrest. That's it. They're probably done for at least half the shift, doing the processing, doing the paperwork. God forbid if they got to take them to Canton to the real jail. I mean, it's just there's a lot that has to go on. So when we talk about the relationship with the sheriff's department and we talk about the relationship with the state police being able to respond, it isn't to displace our people. It's because there is a significant call load here. We really do need the help. We can't do it all on our own. Again, if you gave the optimal number that I put down here, 26 people, we'd still be, there'd still be a lot going on. The mental health piece, Mark and I have had a couple good meetings. We're going to meet with all the mental health providers. And quite frankly, I'm prepared to tell the state fairly soon, we're not responding to other than 911 calls at the psychiatric center for mental health pickups. We just don't have the resources to do it because the state has put an operation here that puts a heavy load on chasing down people that don't show up where they're supposed to. The Ogdensburg Police Department, we're not funded. We don't have the resources for that. They're going to have to start to rely more on the state police to do that. The state police won't welcome that in the least bit, and they'll probably argue they shouldn't have to do it. But how does that burden fall on us? You saw the number of calls in here, 576, and you all have seen how some of those calls go down, and that's what I've tried to parlay to the mental health providers is, I'm not sending police officers out there with medications or the ability to subdue people, in a calm and peaceful way. We send them out there with tasers, pepper spray, and guns. That's what they have. So every encounter with one of these people looks like some kind of an awful violent undertaking. And it's the resources we have. So we're going to work on addressing, reducing that number of calls and at least sharing the load with the state police, because again, some of those calls they can consume a whole shift. If things go wrong, or we've got to stay with the person until there's a disposition. So I'm just trying to bring the council's attention. There's got to be some consideration to changing the overall mission load of the police department, because I don't think we can staff it even at the number we want to. If we just pick up the perfect number and we staff that tonight, it's not enough. We've got an organization, as I said to all of you before. I think the model is flipped over. The base has us doing the base work, then the sheriff's department, then the state police on top of the pyramid. It's completely reversed from a perspective of funding and resources. We've got to engage the state police. We have a barracks right here. They have the biggest budget, the greatest number of people. Everybody has a story. I met with the sheriff. I met with the zone or the troop commander, Major Oliver, a couple months ago. And again, he's got an enormous area to cover. It doesn't have anywhere near the resources he would like to have. We got a lot more resources than we do. So I'm just, again, this really isn't, I don't think, an issue, again, as I've said, not about not wanting police or anything else. It's just about what we can afford and what we can keep pushing our police force to do with the resources, that we're giving them. We made a lot of gains this year in equipment, policies, communications gear, ballistic vests. I mean, we really went top to bottom in the organization, ensuring that everything is top notch. We bought the best cameras. I mean, I think we've outfitted them, with everything possible. The only thing we didn't look at was firearms. Chief Westcott felt the firearms that they had were adequate for the period of time we're in. But we looked at everything else and darn near replaced everything else. So I feel like, the news is not all bleak. We looked at a lot of issues that had not been addressed in a number of years in the police department and took care of those. The leasing program certainly will provide stability and consistency and continuity with making sure cars are there. It's the one department I can say for sure right now that we should always just have vehicles in the leasing program. So we're rotating them every 2 to 3 years, depending on mileage. So we keep the smallest number of vehicles, but reliable vehicles in service. Expensive proposition. So again, I feel like we made gains. We had a really good reform committee, put a lot of good things in place, and that plan is being executed daily on schedule. They hired a contractor who went again top to bottom with their policies and procedures and modernized everything and revamped it, computerized it, so everybody has it at their fingertips or on their phone. So again, I think there was a lot of gains made. When we looked at the facility issues, about the only thing lacking in that facility now is to look just at that, to add central air. At some point, we've got the heating system built back up. It's an older building, but a well-built structure, and I think will last us for several more years. So,
If, not just the police department, but all departments, city hall, everything. The only way is to be able to do everything we want is to grow our city. We've known that. It's increasing revenue. That's the key to everything. Hasn't been done in decades, and we're on the cusp of it right now. It's starting. We got over $100 million in private equity going into the city. That's the start. That's what we've needed for decades, and we're getting it. We've taken a big hit with sales tax, but the fact is, we've worked real hard on sales tax, and when our state legislators get the legislation we need, our sales tax will increase substantially. We've finally, for some reason, the city, when it couldn't afford the property tax, making everyone whole, they ignored it. We're not ignoring it. In the last 2 years, we've come a long ways. That's going to help us financially. If we want a bigger police department and other things, we're going to have to grow our city. And that's been this administration, that's what we've worked on for 2 years. And it's happening. And that's how we'll dig our way out of this. We need to continue to, nobody's going to invest in a bankrupt city. So we've gotten the financial stability that the city needs. You know, we've had our credit rating increase. We're working on restoring all the facilities. You know, this city hall needs a roof. City hall needs HVAC. So we need to continue on that. We need to make a better life for our citizens, and we have done quite a few improvements to our rec department, and we're going to grow that. So if we're working on the things that are needed to support the police and all other departments in the city. And I think we give ourselves a year, and we're going to see the fruits of that work. And then we won't be, you know, arguing over the money for this or that. We're going to have it eventually if we stay on course. It's my
Could we get more complete data in terms of the cases they're handling? I mean, that goes to the state, so those 10,000 cases, I think there's probably a couple thousand right here detailed. What are the other 8,000?
Which ones?
Just a breakdown. You know what I mean?
11 right now.
Just a breakdown. You know what I mean?
I can. So in the Spillman system that they use to log everything, everything is logged as a case. So I can provide, I can get Chief Kearns to provide the data. So we log everything from a pistol permit investigation to somebody calls in, you know, missing something. Everything gets logged. So I think what Mark tried to do tonight with the data was break out to you the pertinent, you know, significant things that are there. But I'll ask him to do the entire run so you can see what everything is contained in. The Spillman system is our record keeping, our accountability, who's where, who's doing what, et cetera. So each and everything they do gets logged into there. So those call numbers are high, but I think Mark, in kind of a full transparency, if you will, he brought to you the things that are the significant criminal statistics in there, other than a lot of the daily things that come in.
I'm curious what the other ones are.
Yep, unfortunately.
Can we go on to fire?
Is there anything else that
No, let's move on.
council needs to see or wants brought back from the police department? No? Okay, great. Okay, so the fire program for 2022, you all have the budget sheets in front of you. Excuse me, we are, my recommendation there is from a staff of 21 to 18. We will continue in the same manner that we've been. I'm going to, we've got an assistant fire chief retiring at the end of the month. And so we'll have one assistant fire chief working a Monday through Friday schedule, working administrative, training, operational planning issues, et cetera. And so the shifts will be staffed with 4 personnel each, which also corresponds with the minimum number of people that we're currently keeping on duty. We'll be taking a look at the way we're doing minimum staffing, if there's periods that we can go below 4. Again, I presented you during the budget workshop with what I think of the numbers for the fire department, what are essentials, optimal, and enhanced level staffing. Again, there's no no daylight between me and the numbers we ought to have. It's optimally somewhere between 22 and 26 is where the fire department would operate best. I just don't see where the fiscal conditions allow us to do it. So my recommendation of this number is based on no layoffs. These are vacant positions that we can hold off on filling for this year while we figure out what our revenue source is going to look like going forward.
So you've got one retired assistant chief coming up at the end of the year?
Yes, sir. That's excuse me. Assistant Chief McCarthy will retire at the end of the month of November. Going to work on city staff for about a month, working on some projects and planning, and then he'll retire fully from the city at the end of the year.
You're not funding, so you're going to keep one, so you're looking to get rid of two other ones?
Those are.
Maybe I misunderstood you.
No, you're right. So we budgeted for 21 positions last year. This year we're budgeting for 18. So those are all positions that we already had attrited during the year through the retirement.
The other two assistant chiefs are already attrited.
Yes, sir. As the mayor was saying, one of the concerns I think we all share is probably the most difficult thing that any of us had to be involved with last year was the actual layoff of employees. So as we go into this year, first year of our preemption was sales tax in really an unknown manner of what's it going to look like. I think we've done the homework, we've done the math to the best of the data that was available to us to project what's going to be available, but we don't really know. We don't really know for a couple of reasons, not the least of which is this economy is running pretty hot right now with government money being flooded into it. That's going to stop. The economy is going to correct at some point. I think we're starting to see it now. Our sales tax it did drop significantly in the last month's take compared to the same period last year. So I think this year is caution for as many reasons as we can list off on every page here, but mostly it's to make sure that we provide stabilization to the workforce. We don't have to tell anybody this year in this budget that anyone's getting laid off. We can look our workforce squarely in the face and say for the year 2020, everybody is good. And I would be real cautious throughout the year as any position vacates at doing filling as we get closer and closer to knowing what our numbers will look like for 2023.
And you're evaluating our major equipment and working on that as well?
Fire department.
Yes.
So the fire department is similar to the police department. This year we made a lot of gains in communications equipment, protective clothing, tools, etc. So we've applied through the Financial Restructuring Board program to replace our ladder truck. Hoping to hear before the end of the year on that funding. So we've looked at everything again in the organization, and we really are down now to the major pieces of equipment. Our ladder truck is 29 or 30 years old, it's, beyond its usable life. One of our pumpers is a little bit older and not all that reliable. So what my proposal would be is when we are able to buy one truck, we'll get rid of the two oldest, the old ladder truck and the oldest pumper. That'll give us a combination ladder and pumper truck to run as our primary apparatus, and then we'll have a pumper as backup for the other trucks. So I think we've accomplished a lot good in the fire departments. This year we'll be working on getting everybody's training. We've got a lot of new officers recently promoted, so this will be a big year to get everybody's training up to the level of the positions that they hold now, and preparing the next group of promotees. One of the things we saw this year was with the large amount of retirements we had, there was quite a vacuum caused with people trained for the positions to move into. So I want to put the emphasis this year on training and working on the major pieces of apparatus. So not a lot different in the equipment and the operational budget. If you go down through there again, I've put in some additional money for equipment and some additional money for training, but largely it's the same. Some maintenance issues that need to be taken care of at the building. We've added the money in here to do that, but nothing significant.
I'm glad to see training coming back. Okay? It's been something that was cut out every year. Really important.
I'd like to see some truck upgrades too. That'd be great. Can we go on to general, unless there's more questions?
So I have a question. So when I'm looking at this budget,
Yep.
I see 18 members total proposed, including the fire chief.
Yes, sir.
So the proposed budget salary is $46,000 for a fire chief.
Great.
Does that go to you?
No. What I've done there, Counselor, is I've estimated the full salary for a fire chief ought to be 92,000. I'm hoping by about mid-year, we'll have been able to recruit somebody and get them tested and on board. So I plan for half the salary.
Okay.
And I want to thank you for taking both jobs on and doing that. Very good.
So city council or?
No other questions on the fire department? Okay, great. So if you wanted to flip just to the city council line, we can just go through these if there's any questions, some of the simple ones.
I don't have any questions on that. I don't have any questions on city manager other than your salary. So last year you took 108, you were eligible for 120,000. You took a reduction, and this year you're looking to go up to what your contract calls for, which is $120,000. I'm fine with that from just my perspective.
And thank you for taking that cut last year too.
We don't have a secretary in your office anymore.
Council Reese, we could just, so on just for a minute so everybody can catch up. Start with page C2, mayor and council. Again, nothing's changed there. Same number of salaries, for you. And then on to the mayor and council, the operational line. Again, we've just made sure we've programmed things in there. Probably the largest expense is paying for the update to the GoToWebinar system that we have here. And then again, onto this page C4, the city manager's budget. Eliminated the secretary position that was budgeted last year. We didn't fill it last year. This year I've just eliminated it from the sheet altogether.
And is that all we were covering tonight? Was the two departments and those two things?
We can keep going on the administrative pages if council desires.
Yeah, that's right.
More. C5 or C6 is the comptroller.
So gray and gray is the 96,000 that we budgeted for a comptroller in 2020 plus benefits. We now use gray and gray, and their 2022 proposed salary is 84,000.
So what we expect to have happen this year, you can see the makeup of the positions. We're currently recruiting for a finance supervisor that will work in addition to the two account clerks that we have in the office now. And we will transition some of the daily duties that Angela Gray is performing now to the finance supervisor. And I'm looking to try to find the sweet spot. And we made some good gains this year, making a lot of efficiencies, improving systems in the office. What I'm hoping to see come to fruition is just this: an office makeup of 3 staff, a supervisor, and a couple of account clerks. And then with every year going on, similar to with the city attorney, we will keep a CPA firm on retainer as our city comptroller to provide that CPA level oversight to it. I expect the amount will go down next year, the year after, et cetera. But I think it's pertinent. Very much the same reason why we have a contractual agreement with the city attorney. There's a reason we need to continue a contractual agreement with the CPA firm. The truth is, hiring in the CPA field is almost as difficult as hiring in the law firm, and the salary that the city can afford to pay, we're not going to be able to recruit and retain a certified public accountant. And I think that it's important, with the complexity of that office and all the rules and all the regulations and the different programs that go on, that we keep a CPA at the helm of our city finances. I also think it's important that we allow ourselves the flexibility to be able to use a firm for special projects and things that we need, that will only task our people beyond the capability they have and or the capacity. So the comptroller office 2 years ago, the makeup was 5 people, a comptroller and 4 personnel. So what we have this year, we'll have a supervisor and 2 staff in there, and then we'll continue our contractual consultant obligation with Gray and Gray as the city comptroller, and using them again for special projects and studies and analysis as needed. So we had quite a few of those last year between water and sewer and sales tax and property tax, lots of things to analyze and work numbers through. I certainly expect that's going to be a lot less special project work in the coming year.
Where's the line item for Gray and Gray?
Page
515.
C7 counselor, it's down on consultants, 1315.515.
84,000, Dan.
Oh, got it.
What is the computer expense for 25,000?
The city software is a contractual agreement for 5 years that maintains all the finances within the city. And so that is split between water, sewer, and general fund. And that's the general fund's portion of that software that runs approximately 75,000 to 100,000 a year.
Which one do you use?
We use a software called from Tyler Technologies called Encode 10.
Is it any good?
It does its job. We're currently working with it to automate payroll, so it is an all-inclusive program. Full disclosure, the city subscribes to a 5-year contract for multiple modules, and I would estimate that we are currently using 40 to 50% of the total modules that we're paying for.
And you can't adjust that?
We're working on it. That's one of the projects we've been working on in the Comptroller's office. The utility billing is still not done there. We have a legacy system, so sometimes when the requests come in for information for anything earlier than 2019, it's on a legacy system. So we're working to convert that information into the new system because the company that hosts that is terminating that at the end of the year. So is it any good? It does its job. It's a highly recommended software, but for the way that the city finances functions, some of the confirmation in the comptroller's office is it doesn't work the way the old systems did. So we're trying to navigate through all that. And it's been a big initiative in the last 3 months to create some efficiencies within that software program. And we're certainly not using what we're paying for.
Is there any effort on water and sewer, those cards that are sent out, different color ones? I mean, that's what's still primarily used, right?
Right, then that's not the system that we're paying for. So we're paying for a utility billing system as part of that $25,000 number, but that number is also replicated in the water and sewer fund.
I just wondered why it didn't go out with the regular bills and, send those cards out. Or
It's just the system that they have that has been used for years. I mean, I know that's not the popular answer, but
No,
we
I
just haven't made the changes yet.
No, if you can look into upgrading stuff like that, that'd be good.
And we have been.
The system was bought 2 years ago. Angela's being delicate. The system was bought 2 years ago. I don't know. It appears like the comptroller bought the system he thought was good because none of the staff appeared to have liked it. So we have all these modules that weren't implemented. We didn't implement utility billing. We didn't implement payroll and accountability. We implemented some of the accounting. We didn't implement the tax usage system. So we're working through now that process. We signed a contract. The company showed us some mercy a year ago and said, okay, you're not up to speed with able to implement all this. So they gave us a credit for 1 year, but we signed a contract. We own it. So we're working quick to get it transitioned over, but it's a lot of data. The system that we currently use now is a pretty old system. The data is not going to convert as seamlessly as we would have liked to have had done. There's going to be a lot of manual inputting and transition on the system and the staff. So we're going to get there. As you heard me talk before, the timekeeping system I think is of utmost importance that we get that implemented so we know exactly where our hours are going at certain points.
Great, thanks.
Assessments on page 8. Again, same arrangement we had last year. We are going to continue. So the assessor's salary will remain at $40,000, and we'll continue a contractual agreement with the county of $15,000 or $16,000 to do data input and entry and administrative work, and that will avoid us hiring back the clerk position that was in there. We did that all last year. It worked well. Obviously, with having Bruce Green over in the county office, he knows our system, and I think we've transitioned in a pretty positive manner.
Is that consultants?
No, I'm sorry, C8, John. It's the salary for the assessor.
No, the contract with the county.
No, yes, it is. I'm sorry. It's the 13,000. It's in the first consultant line, 515. And then we did the second consultant line so we could break out the cost of doing the citywide assessment. That's the estimate to do that project.
That's the 40,000. I'm sorry.
C9 or C8, Counselor, that's the 40,000 is the salary. Then going to C9, down the left line, there's two consultant lines. One is the money we pay the county, and then the larger one, the 275, is the amount of money budgeted to do the citywide program.
Citywide assessment. 289,000 or 275. What's
275.
275? Okay. Who does that?
We have estimates from two companies. One is GAR,
Yes.
and the other was, I don't know, we had two estimates. One is the GAR group. I can't remember the name of the other vendor that responded to our request for proposal.
We'll get that in the resolution.
Yeah. City clerk, C10.
Yeah, have those raises already gone into effect?
Yes, sir.
Those are pretty significant raises.
I can't believe
The deputy clerk, how long's she been employed? I'm not knocking her. I have nothing.
I'm not knocking either one of them, but it's just, I think that's a council decision.
Well, I
Well,
can't
that's
believe
why we're
that
here.
our city clerk was paid
No, it's
so
already in
little.
effect. It's already been decided. That's what I'm trying to say.
I agree.
Thank Kathy for working so hard.
Are those CSEA positions?
No, sir. They're not, and that was part of the problem because they weren't part of our bargaining unit contract. They lag behind. I mean, I think we all know, I think every one of you had contact with our previous deputy clerk, and I mean, I don't have anything to say about a salary of $36,000. Not going to keep somebody with the knowledge that's required in that office and the number of skills and tasks for $36,000. So, and same with the city clerk. I don't. Those salaries are just brought in line with commensurate other people in the city and what the salaries make.
Yeah, but that's a council decision. It's not a staff decision. And we have an executive compensation committee for that, I think. So.
Council has never done anything with the executive compensation committee in 2 years, and I believe the charter allows the city manager to set the staff for the at-will staff and negotiate the contracts.
Well, we'd have to discuss that because that's not the way I do it.
You want your money back? It's done. Okay.
Yeah, it's just a question of the proper way to do it, that's all.
It's nearly a 25% raise in both salaries.
Pay was way too low.
No, that's an opinion. Everybody else
Just
has
like those
theirs.
contracts you guys did.
Yeah, they were like, what, like 3 or 4% raises.
No,
You're
I
okay with
think
25% though?
Yeah, when there's a gap, when it's $36,000, Counselor, it's not really a comparison. We have other technician employees making more than our city clerk and our deputy city clerk. I mean, we just overlooked those positions when the last round of pay stuff was done. It's all that happened. There's nothing nefarious here. There's nothing being handed out. We just simply overlooked these two positions. And we lost our deputy city clerk, well-trained, a lot of time, a lot of money spent. We lost our city clerk because we were paying her $36,000.
It's done. So bad.
C12, the law budget, pretty straightforward, I think.
We expected to spend the 200,000 for 21.
Yes, I think we'll be close to it, Counselor. I think the last budget report had us right about where we should have been for.
151.
Yeah, we were right about on target the last budget report as of the end of September. So I think we'll be excuse me, we'll be right at or just below that budget number. Again, we've
That'll
reduced.
consist of how many law firms? 2, 3?
In general, 2. The Convoy Law Firm, which is where the city attorney works from, Coughlin and Gerhard that we've used for labor, and some complex intergovernmental matters. And then we had a small amount to one other law firm that handled a couple Article 7 issues that was hired a couple of years ago, just continuing. So I'd say total of 3 counselors is roughly.
Yeah, third name?
Hiscock and Barkley.
Oh, Hiscock and Barkley.
Yeah. They worked, the biggest area they worked on for us was the cheese plant area. And then they typically work the Article 7s. It's an area they've got a specialized attorney that's who's handled all those.
I gotta get going. The only other question I have, if you can humor me, is out of general government is on C18. Just the increase in central services. That seems like an awful lot, especially when just about every department has these lines and those expenses.
Which line are you speaking of, Counselor?
Yeah.
The whole thing going from, it was 201 and we're at 201, but we only spent 115 to date. Are we really spending? We're spending, this is like we have those office expenses, telephone, printing, and every single department with expenses, but then we have central services.
We do. So we spent 115 as of the end of September. So there's an entire another quarter to go. So again, we may be a little bit under the budget amount of 201, but I wouldn't suspect it'll be a lot, Counselor. And the cost and the cost of everything we're doing over in that line for this year, the leases on the copiers, equipment, the materials we're buying, everything has gone up in price this year. So we can check that again, but I think again the number you're seeing is not necessarily to date. It's to the end of September.
Right, it's 3 quarters. Okay.
Yeah.
City Hall roof in here?
No, sir. That'll be we'll hit the capital plan on the next budget, and it'll be on there. I didn't put anything in here that was of a capital, significant capital origin. That'll all be on the capital plan for you to be able to fund out of the other money.
So the building maintenance line is just what, routine?
Yeah.
I mean, so in 19 it was $3,000. In 2020 it was 1,800. And then it went to 18,000 and another 18,000. Something was added there over the years.
Just where you at, Counselor?
C17 building maintenance.
This is City Hall building. So I am, and again, I can't speak to what's going on in the past. I know we're trying to look at the small issues in the building. Now we upgraded the paint and the carpet in the conference room last year. We're working on doing the lighting throughout the building. I mean, it's a big old building. We had a sewer line break in the wall there. We had to fix that. So I mean, I'm trying to just stay ahead of it and have money in here so I'm not reaching to other accounts when unexpected things break. So I think that just accounts for
Preventative maintenance and upgrades.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, I'm hoping again, as we advance the capital plan, we get some of the big rocks off our back, like the roof and the heating system, things like that, then our capital improvement can be, go towards, even you look at the carpet in this room, for instance, in some of the offices, it's in excess of 25 years old probably. So that's what we'll use that money for is making some incremental upgrades. We're going to move Andrea Smith's shop, the planning and engineering group. We're going to move all that downstairs. So we'll be realigning some of the offices back there. And again, just some of the carpet's just in bad shape. The walls need to be painted, etc. So. C20, if you wanted to just hit that one real quick, that's a small line, but we can check off the historian. Have increased the salary on that a little bit. Our city historian retires from her full-time job at the end of the school year. And we intend to put her to work quite a few more hours. We've got a lot of, she's really been stuck in that closet for all these years and everything is just stowed in there. We've got to get things organized, get our records back in shape, get some of the, I would call the older artifacts and materials. We've got to get that stuff displayed here. So we're gonna put Julie to work doing that. We're gonna get her a little bigger space to work downstairs out of and display some of these things. If you open her closet right here to the left, it really wasn't right here. It really was a closet, and there's just a lot of stuff in there. So we need to get our records reorganized and get things protected.
So in terms of building maintenance, there was a huge print that a gentleman donated a few years ago. And he asked me about it all the time. Where are we putting it? Where are we hanging it? Can we put that up somewhere? It's in the other chambers.
Sure.
Just have somebody hang that thing. Is it?
Oh, that map?
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
beautiful
yeah,
map.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, guy donated it to the city and he's always asking me about it and I keep forgetting to bring it up.
Sure.
Yeah, that's a powder here.
We've had a lot of things donated in the last couple of months, so Julie's going to work on properly framing those and matting them and getting things hung up. So one of the other things we're going to ask her to do is we're going to try to change out the display down to the Davisky Center a couple times a year, just in the hopes that people will come and read what's on the wall and read the history. I think a lot of people read the two things that are down there now, but I think it's time to change those periodically and draw people there, even if it's our own residents, draw them down to the Davisky Center from time to time.
2 items that were my last question, I believe, in this was C21, planning and development. I see the director and the planner.
So we'll have a night that Andrew will be here doing that budget concert if we can put the questions for you.
Gotcha.
Actually we hit a couple of her things tonight with assessor, but so if we could set a date before we go for the next one, I'd like to get DPW done next, just because that's 25 or 30 pages to roll through, and water and sewer in the same night. So if we could set a date next week for those programs.
17th, I have to work that night.
Yeah, what about Monday the 15th?
Monday, I'm good.
I can do Monday, Tuesday. Monday or Tuesday. My kids have COVID vaccines on Thursday and
I can
Friday.
do Monday or Tuesday.
Mondays works better.
Monday, good?
Yeah, my daughter gets, Monday's fine.
You guys good with Monday?
Hard to say right now.
I know.
No, probably not. In all reality. I'll be all over the state. But if I can chime in, I will. So you're only looking to do what? DPW?
DPW.
Yeah, and water and sewer.
I'll review it. If I got anything else.
Yeah,
forward it
absolutely.
to you.
Absolutely.
Council?
Of all the budgets, it's the most pages, but it's it's probably the most cut and dry, so.
Dry. Good night to miss.
Okay, so I'll send it out for Monday, the 15th. Is 6 o'clock good? Does anybody want to start earlier? It's too hard
I
to.
can't do earlier.
Can't, okay.
I can barely make it here by 6.
Okay.
I know.
Okay.
Sometimes 6 is hard.